welcome. Listen, come on into the room. Listen, as soon as you get in the room, we want you to drop where you are viewing us from. You're in the E320 Miracle Empowerment Room. When you come in the room, we want you to go ahead and let us know where you're viewing from. And I want you to drop those words. You already know what they are. It simply states, I'm in the experience. Hello, Tasha Harrison. How are you doing all the way from Monroe, Louisiana? Thank you so very much for being in the experience. Tasha, why don't you go ahead and lead the way on today and show the people how to do it. Just drop in the chat, I'm in the experience. You're in the E320 Miracle Empowerment Room. That's my cousin LaShondra all the way from Plano, Texas, in the experience. Man, listen, today is going to be a great day. We're going to have a day like no other. That's my daughter, Dr. Pamela Phoenix. Good to have you back in the city, daughter, in the experience. Shalindia McPherson in the experience. Baby D. Lee Smith is in the experience. My cousin, Joyce Marie Adams, in the experience all the way from Mesquite, Texas. Thank you so very much. Listen, go ahead and tag and share. Sean Sanders, thank you. Yucca Valley, California, in the experience. Thank you, granddaughter, for being in the experience on today. Thank God for everybody that's on Lottie and Dottie. But here is what I need you to do. I need you to go ahead and tag as many persons as you possibly can. I need you to drop in the chat at followers. Let them know they've got to be in the experience on today. As Alexander would say if she was here, it is E320 o'clock. And it is that time again where you need to go ahead and invite as many persons as you can to let them know they got to be in the experience. Mother Irma Prim is in the experience on today. Thank you so very much for being in the experience. God's about to do exceeding abundantly above all we can ask or think, according to the power that's at work within us. Keisha Renee, minister in training. Lakeisha Renee Harrison, all the way from Monroe, Louisiana, in the experience. Elder Kaylin Bennett, all the way from Shreveport, Louisiana, in the experience with us on today. I need you again to tag as many persons as you can, Lottie Dottie and everybody. My daughter, Apostle Juanetta Ash, all the way from Gadsden, Alabama, always in the experience. Once again, she's with us. Listen, Alexander has joined us on today, and you know I say it every week. Nobody does it quite like Alexander does it. And again, Alexander, you came right on time. It's E320 o'clock. Go ahead and do it like only you can do it, and welcome them into the experience. My daughter, Minister Natasha Washington, Shreveport, Louisiana, thank you for being in the experience. Alexander, we're in your hands.
Well, God bless you, Bishop. Hour. I always look at my watch and try to determine, but it's E320 o'clock, and I can't tell it on my watch. It's in the heavens. It's that time. Why don't you hit your like and share button? Matter of fact, pick up the phone and call Lottie, Dottie, and everybody. Tell them it's that time. It's the miracle empowerment time. Come in the room. I don't know about you, but I came expecting a miracle. So why don't you come on in? Let me see where you're from. I realize some of you are already in here. And so hit your @followers button. Let's zoom out. Wonderful topic. God is about to bless you right where you are. I know some of y'all still eating turkey. It's okay. You can join us with your turkey in this room. It's free course. Come on in the room. Good afternoon, Maurice Tolbert. Come in the room and hit that @followers button and tell somebody it's miracle. Where you're from. Let us know you on with us. Bring some pecan pie, potato pie, all of that right there. It's that hour. December is that month that you can just have it all. So don't be stingy. Come in the room and bring some leftovers while we prepare for this spiritual food today. come in the room. Drop in. That's it. Drop in the experience and we're not selfish. We want to take this ride together into a place called Next Empowerment, Next Movement. It has your name on it, and we're going together. We're going up together today. I'm going to leave here better, and I'm not selfish. I want you to leave with me better than we showed up. Bishop, we're in your hands, sir.
Well, thank you again, Alexander. How I do love your daughter. I appreciate you. Listen, family, again, we want to formally welcome you to the E320 Miracle Empowerment Hour. It's the experience where we dive into the power of the promises of Ephesians 3:20. You know it by heart by now. Now unto him that is able to do exceeding abundantly above all we can ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us. We've been given a grace that works on our behalf if we are willing to work it. And I'm prophetically speaking over every life that's with us on today. There is something working on your behalf. It's just waiting for you to partner with it so some things can work out on your behalf. I'm prophesying that these next 26 days are going to be the greatest 26 days of the entire year. And it's about to set you up to catapult you over into the new year. Yep, you made it. As the whining said, millions didn't make it, but you ought to be so glad that you were one of the ones who did. And God saved you a special front row seat to see what he's about to do for you in 2025, in the year of double grace, in the year of the multi-dimensional grace. I am delighted to be your host, Bishop R.G. Mason II, doing the most for God and believing that God is about to do the most for you. Again, I am honored to be joined by two of our co-hosts on today. He hails all the way from 29 Palms, California. He is the bishop with the swag, y'all. Won't you give it up for my son, Bishop Perry Ford? What's going on, Bishop? How you doing today, son?
All right, sir. I'm excited. I know last Thursday was Thanksgiving and everybody ate up, but I'm ready to eat some real food today. It's amazing. My sister was talking about going bring the turkey. I was just eating the last week dressing, last week corn salad. I'm just eating last week, but I'm getting a fresh start on the day. So let's get it and let's get it going.
I heard somebody drop a meme, saw somebody rather drop a meme the other day and said they're so sick of eating leftovers, they made a sweet potato and mashed potato omelet on the other morning. And so they just ready to get it over with. So again, I believe it's apropos that we're on this platform on today where we're serving some fresh food and you don't have to continue to suffer with the leftovers. Alexander, the prophet, the apostle, listen, I want you once again to tell us, what are you expecting today in the E320 Miracle Empowerment Hour?
Listen, I am expecting, I can't even think it. I can't fathom it. I'm just expecting God and whatever he show up with. And the wonderful thing is he shows up with just what we need.
Oh,
I don't want to just eat good. I want to eat the good of the land. Some folks are satisfied with eating. I need to eat the good of the land. And so I'm expecting, my brother said it best. I started to suck my fingers then. I'm expecting a mighty miracle today, eating good. I'm expecting good. That's what I'm expecting. My Lord.
Well, listen, I believe that God is about to do exactly that. I believe today that God has invited certain people to this platform because he's trying to expose you to something greater, because exposure enhances expectation and causes the abolition of limitations, which simply means when I see better, I start to crave better, and the things that kept me from having better can no longer hold me down from getting better. And I'm prophesying better in somebody's life on today. You're like the dude food at the gate called beautiful. You're right there at the brink of a breakthrough, but you just don't know how to get it. And I'm prophesying your days of being carried are over. You're about to stand on your own 2 feet. It has nothing to do with nothing, but I believe it has something to do with somebody. Somebody drop in the chat, I'm about to stand on my own 2 feet. I will no longer be carried. I was carried in the last season. I was carried through some point in this year, but today on December the 5th, my carrying days are over. I'm about to stand on my own 2 feet. And just like the man at the gate called beautiful, I believe that God is not about to give you some relief. He's about to give you a remedy. You're about to have the very answer to your situation as we delve into the E320 promises of God. I believe today that God is about to enkindle your faith. He's about to expand your vision. He's about to empower you to believe so you can experience the miraculous power of God at work in your life. So if you need encouragement, if you need direction, inspiration, and empowerment, man, let me tell you, you're in the right place at the right time. So again, without further ado, we need to go ahead and begin with our confession as we always do. Good to see my newest daughter, Pastor Adrian Woods Willis, on with us on today. As a matter of fact, Pastor Willis, do me a favor. This is going to be impromptu. Pastor Jackson, make connection with Pastor Willis. I want to bring her to the platform on today. I just want you, I feel led for you to come on if you can, if you're working, if you are encumbered, don't worry about it. But I believe that God wants to speak something to you and something through you on today as well. Let's make the confession. I am a vessel of God's limitless blessings, ready to receive miracles that exceed my dreams. By faith, I activate divine abundance and step into my extraordinary potential, guided by his grace. Somebody drop in the chat, let the miracles begin. Let the miracles begin. And I believe that's what God's getting ready to do. Now, on last week or week before last, of course, we took a furlough for Thanksgiving, but on week before last, we began to talk about a very sensitive, but yet a very necessary topic that's apropos for the season, which is entitled Home for the Holidays. Now, when we speak of home, the word home is an acronym that stands for hopeless, that stands for overwhelmed, misguided, and enigmatic. Because many times during this time of the year, we find ourselves having feelings that are over amplified by the season in which we're in, and we feel hopeless due to unmet expectations, loss, or loneliness. And we find this increasing many times during this season, even translating over into depression. And because we find ourselves in these particular predicaments during this time of the year, it becomes a bit overwhelming. We are overwhelmed with financial strain. We're overwhelmed with family conflicts. And many times we're overwhelmed by societal pressures. And because of that feeling of being overwhelmed, we find ourselves many times misguided because we don't know how to address the temporary fixes or the temporary fluxes, and we don't have fixes to the fluxes that we find ourselves in. And many times we have the tendency to think we're in a permanent state, although we're in a temporary state, and we start to make permanent decisions based upon temporary circumstances, whether it's in our relationships, in our financial spending, or sometimes the deep-seated issues that we've been trying to cope with on our own, and many times constantly find ourselves failing. But then it leads us to a place of being enigmatic, where we're dealing with the complexity of emotions. We're trying to deal with unhealthy feelings, and many times in relationships that are unhealthy with unhealthy people, that brings us to a greater point of struggle. And many times we find ourselves at the boiling point where we feel like we're just getting ready to explode, and we don't know how to deal with the stuff that's began to deal with us. Well, let's talk for a minute, beloved. Let's talk about the season that we're in, because the holiday season is oftentimes romanticized as a time of joy and togetherness. I want you to look at that word for a moment and let's unpack it. It's romanticized. It's looked upon through utopian lenses, where everybody loves the Christmas music. Everybody loves the season or the temperature and the time of the year. And although it's supposed to project external bliss, many times it's actually projecting internal misery. Because although it's supposed to be a time of joy and togetherness, there are times where we find ourselves marked by emotionalism, by mental strain, and by spiritual challenges that are akin to the season in which we're in. I want to take a moment to just unpack a few things and talk about the struggles that many times are commonplace with most of us, whether we're in the church or out of the church, whether we have titles or we don't hold positions, whether we are lay persons or leaders. Many times we still find ourselves in a position that Smokey Robinson coined as the tears of a clown. We're smiling on the outside, but we're crying on the inside. We always seem to know what to say to make other people happy, but we can't find joy and peace within ourselves. Many times we have come to the place where we've coped and we've learned how to manage and maintain the status quo until we've become numb to the pressures of life. And now we've come to the place where we no longer find ourselves feeling anything, so we can no longer be hit by the hurt or hurt by the hits, but yet we don't know how to experience joy anymore either, because we've become emotionally numb, and unbeknownst to us, we've actually become emotionally enigmatic. And so we find ourselves many times during this time of the year suffering from a psychological condition called SAD. That's SAD. It's an acronym that stands for seasonal affective disorder. It's a type of depression that's linked to the changes of season. And watch this, guys, even the reduction of sunlight, because we are seemingly gloomy because of the change of the atmosphere that's being projected externally, that begins to affect you internally as well. And it causes certain triggers, because if you've had trauma to take place in your life during this time of the year, if you had loved ones to go home to be with the Lord, or transition during this time of the year, if you find yourselves experiencing loss during this time of the year, then when the season changes, it automatically takes you into an emotional strain, because traumas are triggered, and it brings you down the path of depression. And you've heard depression be defined as anger turned inside out. It's when you swallow your feelings. It's when you swallow your emotions, and it happens to the best of us. There were biblical characters who dealt with the same type of enigmatic emotions that led to depression. David dealt with it. Elijah dealt with it. Jeremiah dealt with it. Some argue that Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he said, "My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even unto death," that he was dealing with a type of depression himself. But it leads to anxiety, heightened stress due to financial relational and societal pressures that are only akin to this particular time of the year. And then sometimes it's marked by loneliness, a deep sense of isolation when you're not surrounded by others, but sometimes even when you're surrounded by the wrong people. You can be in the bed with somebody and still be lonely. You can be in relationship with people and still be lonely because it stems from a deep-seated sense of disconnection. Disconnection deals with that feeling of detachment from purpose, from family, and even sometimes from God, where you find yourself feeling like nobody understands you. No one can identify with you. And now you're in a place where you're sinking deeper and deeper, and it leads you to a place of discontentment. And this discontentment ultimately gives over to despondent behavior, because now you have a lack of fulfillment, you have a lack of motivation, and everything negative overshadows the positive, and you found yourself drowning and sinking. And even though you are conscious many times of what's happening, you have no particular lifeline being thrown to you, and you feel like there is ultimately no hope for you. It is the National Alliance of Mental Illness that gives this startling statistic. It says 64% of people with mental health challenges feel worse during the holidays. You know what that means? Let's unpack it. It means if I was already troubled in my head, when this time of year comes, it's exacerbated, and the feelings are amplified and magnified so until it becomes so overwhelming that many times I succumb to it, give in, and I feel like there is simply no way God can get me out of this. Well, I came to tell you the good news is the bad news was wrong. God is releasing a grace on today, and I'm prophesying those of you who's been strangled by the spirit of depression, that demon called heaviness, those of you who felt the life being squeezed out of you by that principality called Python and Jezebel, that demonic system that's been trying to influence you and control you and ultimately make you give up. Yeah, God, I'll say that, Holy Ghost. I even exposed the passive demon called Ahab, where you no longer care anymore, where you're no longer putting up resistance anymore, where you're no longer fighting anymore. Ahab, you have been exposed. Jezebel, you're being decapitated. And Python, you're being descaled, and you are being annihilated today by the Holy Ghost. I decree your deliverance on today. Did you not know that the CDC reports that 5 to 10% of an increase in mental health crises takes place during the holiday season? It simply means, again, that what you're feeling already throughout the year is exacerbated during this particular time of the year because of triggers that happen, unmet expectations and financial pressures, and the feelings of inadequacy that ultimately lead to grief because of isolation. And sometimes you're isolated, and the feelings of isolation are magnified because you can't stay off of social media, because you keep going to platforms where you keep comparing your reality to other folks' fantasy, where they show you what they want to show you about themselves, only to make you downplay what's really going on in reality with yourself. And now you're beginning to compare yourself to fiction, and now you're beginning to sink deeper in your reality. But then cultural pressures sometimes come because there are certain narratives that take place in the church, as well as in secular society, because it's cuffing season now, and nobody wants to go to the Thanksgiving or the Christmas movie by themselves. And so many times we start to compromise our standards. Many times we start to call old flames on the phone. We start to give heed to certain conversations that we normally would not give heed to, and ultimately constantly entangling and re-entangling ourselves with the coiling spirit of Python that ultimately causes soul ties, that causes you to become ungodly paired with a system and with spirits that you don't have the might or the power to fight through or ultimately overcome. Now, I know certain things are not soul ties. Certain things are due to the fact that you're just dealing with emotional dysfunction yourself. But then there comes a time when you find yourself so tied to other people due to the weak constitution that you have, that your will is overpowered, that your mind is overpowered, that your emotions become overpowered. But if we're going to find solutions to these crises, we've got to find pragmatic ways to begin to put the work in so we can ultimately overcome, and we can WIN, which is win. Let me give you a few, and then I'm going to tag my host here, co-host in here on today. First thing I need you to do, if we're going to overcome the challenges and the stresses and the triggers and the trauma that's associated with this particular time of the year, we've got to recognize our worth beyond our circumstances. I'll say that again for the people in the back. You've got to recognize your worth beyond your circumstances. Psalms 34:18 said, the Lord is nigh unto them of a broken heart, and saveth such that be of a contrite spirit. Here's what you got to understand. Your value is not tied to what you have or what you don't have. You are valuable regardless of who's around you and who does not want to deal with you. I need somebody to drop in the chat, I'm valuable. See, you got to know your worth. I say it all the time, Apostle. I say it all the time, Bishop. No one will treat you any greater than you see you. But no one will see you any greater than you treat you. You got to know your worth in this situation and in this season, and you've got to know it's not tied to your situation. You're bigger than this. You are greater than that. And that's why you can't die where you are, because this is not it for you. This is not the end for you. I want somebody to put in the chat, it's not good grammar, but it makes good sense. This ain't it for me. You got to know there is more coming, and what's coming for you is better than what has been. But then number two, you've got to shift your focus from ingratitude to gratitude. The Apostle Paul says it this way to the church at Thessalonica in 1 Thessalonians 5:18. He said, in everything, give thanks. The word thanks is Eucharisto. Eucharisto simply says, I've developed an attitude of gratitude. I'm not complacent, but I'm grateful. I'm not staying where I am, but I'm glad I'm not where I was. And since I'm not where I was, and I am where I am, I'm going to use where I am to shift me to where I'm going, because I'm constantly moving, because I'm thankful. Now, Alexander, here is what'll mess you up. Because there's some stuff I'm just not thankful for. There's some stuff and situations I find myself in that I just don't like. But he never said, give thanks for everything. He said, give thanks in, and the preposition is important. While I'm in it, though I don't appreciate it, cannot understand it, I'm going to tell him thank you. And I'm not thanking him simply because it could be worse, because I don't know what worse looks like. I just know this. I'm thanking him while I'm in it because I trust him to know what he's doing. And if he put me in it, if he put me in it, he got a way out of it. Okay, you need Bible. Look here, Peter. Satan has had a conversation with me about you. He's asked me for permission to sift you as wheat. Watch what he says. He didn't say if you're converted. He says when you're converted. It means I could stop him, but I'm not. I'm going to allow him. But the when, the adverb in the conversation and the clause suggests, since I'm letting you in it, I already got a way out of it. Can I just ask somebody to put in the chat, I got a way out of this? Even if you don't know how the bill is going to be paid, even if you don't know how your body is going to be healed, even if you don't know how the relationship is going to be repaired, someone say, I got a way out of this. But then here's the final thing, and I don't want to make you glad twice. Glad I start talking and glad I shut up. Here's the final thing. You got to embrace community. You got to stop trying to be the Lone Ranger, because even the Lone Ranger had Tonto. Everybody needs somebody, and especially during this time of the year, you need somebody. And I don't know who I'm prophesying to in here. You got to stop falling out with everybody. You've got to stop finding reasons to separate and start discovering possibilities to aggregate, because you have more in common than you don't. And you've got to find ways to connect and stop trying to disconnect so much, because there's nothing you can do by yourself. You've heard us talk about it on this platform. Listen, God doesn't send what you need. He sends who you need, who has what you need. And in this season, the very people that you try to disconnect from may be the very people God's trying to use to take you to the next level. Ecclesiastes 4:9 said 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their labor. He said, if one falls, the other one will lift up his fellow. He said, but woe unto him that falls and has nobody to help him up. Will that be you in this season? Will you fall and be like the old lady on the old school commercial and say, I've fallen and I can't get up? Because you have alienated everybody from your life. Because, God, I feel you here. Alexander, you better help him get in here. I really feel you. Holy Ghost just said to me, some of you are alienating people from your life, making yourself unlikable because of something you don't like about yourself. And because you don't like you, you make it hard for me to like you. When in reality, you've got to confront you about the stuff you don't like about you, so you can learn to get along with me. And so in this season, you got to identify these emotions and challenges, and you got to learn how to navigate through them. You've got to be able to combat these subtle pressures that pressure you sometimes to act out, to become frustrated, to break relationship, to breach covenant, and alienate yourself, particularly during times like these in the holidays. But as we navigate holidays and relationships, I told you they've been romanticized as being a time of joy and a time of family and a time of togetherness. But many times the reality is it's a time of strife, it's a time of stress, it's a time of grief, and it's a time of relational challenges. Bishop Ford, listen, how can people manage the stress of strained family dynamics during the holidays? Because you know we got them. We know now, I'm not being racist, but I only know how to be a man of color. And in families of color, we have a lot of relational dysfunction. And during the holidays, it's amplified because that's when we come together. How can we overcome these strained family dynamics and dysfunctions during the holidays?
That's amazing, sir, because as you say, when we get together, we always have those ones that are always going to come and try to upset the cookie flow that we got going on. You know, you got that one uncle, you get drunk and get in the corner and say, y'all can't do this like I can, and y'all don't know nothing about this. You got the other one that coming up, can I borrow a couple of dollars? And you got the other one that's always fighting. You just have to go in and just being real. You got to go into the situation, understanding it is what it is. I'm not going to allow them to take the joy out of my life. They can go on over there, fight, fuss, and fire. I'm going to get in. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to play my spades, play my dominoes. I'm going to eat some pie. I'm going to laugh. I'm going to run around. And I'm not going to allow that to cause me any problem, because when I think about it, when you look at the situation and you think about, here's someone like Paul, locked up in a prison in Rome, but he's writing encouraging words to people in Philippi, telling them that may be the culture in the Philippi, but that ain't got to be your culture. So that may be the family dynamics, but they ain't got to be my dynamics. I don't have to act like that. I don't have to cut. I'm sorry. Can I say this? I don't have to cut a food. I don't have to do all that. Just because it's in the culture doesn't mean it's in me. And somewhere in the line, I got to break the culture. I got to be the one that brings some sense to the unsensible. I got to walk in with enough faith and confidence in me and enough anointing on me that I can disrupt the usual and make the unusual now a new thing. Those that used to act up don't act up no more, because when I walk in with this confidence like, not today. I know what the spirit is. I prayed about it before I got here. And all of a sudden, the uncle that always get drunk and out, he don't do that no more. The one that used to cuss like a sailor, they don't cuss no more. And everybody's trying to figure it out is because when you go in, I say to myself, it ends right now. I refuse to allow some people, that it's not a whole lot, it's only a couple, to disrupt what we're trying to do together, a family getting together, which is a blessing in of itself, because we still here. Many didn't make it, but we're one of the ones that did. So let's act like family. And that's all I'm going to say right now.
I thought you were getting ready to say that's your story, and you're sticking to it like Alexander. Listen, Alexander, of course, we need prophetic insight coupled with biblical principles that can help us stay hopeful when family dysfunction ultimately breaks breaks relationships and creates barriers. But I want you to talk about that again. I want you to give us some prophetic insight and some biblical principles we can use when family dysfunction breaks relationship and creates barriers. But Ford said something. He said, you can shift the culture. I know you're prophetic enough to know you had to talk about that a little bit first, about how we can make the difference and shift the culture. Talk about that if you would.
Bishop, he blessed me, and I thought, wow. Now, I always say mixed nuts are not mixed nuts until you mix them. And so there's always...
Now, if I know my production team, they are sounding sirens right now. Because you about to get locked up. You ran through a no speed zone, hit the speed bump, and kept going. You can't say stuff like mix nuts or not mix nuts until they mix with other nuts.
That's right.
And think you can't explain, you won't explain that. You got to help us with that one, because that encompasses everybody that's on the live today. So you got to start there and then build thereafter. Go ahead.
So Bishop, I think it is so unfair. Bishop Ford said it. You got the drunk uncle, you got the $2 person, and you have that person that's always complaining. You know they're going to be there. And so of course you make the difference and you set the tone. The mixed nuts are fine, but they're wonderful when you caramelize them. They're wonderful then. And so when you are the difference, you don't expect the drunk uncle not to be drinking. You don't expect the $2 one not to, but you make the difference. They need to decide, I'm not going to do this because the caramelizing is in here, the difference maker. And so the unfair thing that happens in families is I try to make them be me. And then I get offended because everybody's not Gwendolyn. Everybody's not Gwen. And it's not fair because we don't allow, in families now, we don't allow one another to have their own opinion. I don't have to agree with it, but I respect you enough that you're mature enough to have your opinion. You may like liver. I don't. I shouldn't fall out with you about that. But then here it is, the difference, the caramelizing again brings them together. So now we have to go back and deal with this thing that have broken our family and make a decision. I'm not going to allow us to say we're family and be disconnected. It's not going to work. It can be disheartening. It can be heart-wrenching, but you have to, as the difference maker, I thank you, Bishop Ford, as the difference maker, make a decision that we have this day to love each other and ask a question. What would you do if the phone rang and that person you mad at because they put butter on the popcorn and you don't like it and they're gone? Because if you falling over in the casket hollering, I'm the one they're going to think saying, get up, baby. I'm going to be saying, you didn't even talk to them. Get on up and go sit down somewhere. And so we have to deal with the reality. And of course, I can't do this without the word that we must decide we're going to live peaceably among one another. I'm not going to trip with you because you smoke weed. I'm just not going to go with you. I'm not going to trip with you because you drunk. I'm just going to make the difference. You're going to understand, she in there, I'm not going with the weed. He in there, I'm not taking the drink in there. We have to make the difference without becoming super saved with capes on. But yet instead, you don't understand, these mixed nuts wouldn't stick together if it wasn't no caramel on them. And so in this hour, we have to realize that we can make the difference among the mixed nuts. And that is my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Lord have mercy. That there is so much to unpack there. If I tried, I promise you, I would take the remainder of this broadcast. But let me say this. I think it's apropos for us to at least mention the fact that when you segregate yourself, you're not becoming a separatist. You are still remaining gregarious. You're remaining congenial. You're remaining open and warm. You are simply not succumbing to the culture. And I believe sometimes that's the problem, because we feel like we have to give in to fit in, because we don't want anybody to think that we are different. Here's the truth of the matter. You actually are. And you're supposed to be. You are the salt in that saltless situation that's lost its flavor. You are the light in the midst of that darkness. But you don't have to beat them over the head with it. You don't have to go in there preaching to them. You can be what Paul called a living epistle. And your lifestyle can be the thing that changes them by them seeing you're no longer who you used to be. Alexander, you blessed my whole soul. Thank you so very much. And it started with you, Ford, saying that you don't have to be a part of the culture. You can shift the culture. Let's go a little deeper, or as we would say in our slang vernacular, another further. And so I think it behooves us to expose and then examine the fact that sometimes we have unresolved trauma that many times becomes magnified during holiday interactions. And the reason it does is because we can be distant throughout the year, and I can sometimes suppress what Uncle did to me. I can suppress what Auntie said to me. I can suppress how cousin dogged me. But now that we're in the same room, we're in the same house, sometimes it's hard for me not to succumb to these emotional feelings of rage and anxiety that's pushing me to the brink of almost having to tear the whole house up and ruin Thanksgiving dinner. Bishop, what do I do then? Because that's somebody's question. How do I handle that then? Because I don't want them to think I ain't got no gangster in me. I don't want them to think that I'm just a pushover. I don't want them to think that I forgot about what they did and they got away with it. How do I deal with it then? Well, the first thing I need to identify is the fact of whether or not you're coachable. Because if you're not coachable, it's not going to make a difference of anything I say to you. And if you're not willing to be spiritual while you're being coachable, then you will never be converted into the person that you're needed to be, particularly in the situation that you're finding yourself in. But let me assume that you are, and let's go deeper. The first thing you've got to learn to do is practice self-awareness. You have to be aware of who you are and where you are. And you have to be in a position where you can, through intentionality, make real-time decisions that will affect your tomorrow. I told my testimony yesterday. Apostle Ford reached out to me today and reminded me about it. I failed miserably on yesterday. I'm your pastor, your bishop, your apostle. I'm all them titles. I failed miserably because the wrong person called me at the wrong time, tried to treat me like the wrong kind of dude, and got the wrong side of me out of me. I ain't no cusser. I know y'all want to think I cuss. I don't cuss. But sometimes I can act a fool that you'd rather me cuss you out than act a fool. And I just, yes, blessed be the peacemaker, because he's going to be called a child of God. I'm going to just say it just like that. I got the peacemaker with me at all times, and it's helping me be a child of God. And sometimes I go there, and I go there unwarrantedly and unjustifiably because I'm not maintaining self-awareness. I'm not aware of who I am, where I am, and what I can lose in real time. And sometimes that's even a result of me not being willing to fully give myself to emotional intelligence, where I know how to intelligently control my emotions, but I know how to deal with you when you're in an emotional state as well. But Bishop, what if I am that person that cannot be self-aware in the moment, and I'm that person that cannot control my emotions and help others manage theirs, and sometimes be aware of why a person is emotional and downplay where they are? What do I do then? Well, you are a prime candidate of finding safety in the multitude of counsel, which means you've got to be around some people who has more wisdom or more sagacity than you do, who can speak to you in a way that nobody else can speak to you in. We've been talking, I don't know why, but ever since we got on the platform, I've been referencing the man at the gate called Beautiful. May I say to you that I believe there's a lot of dudes told that dude to get up. But when Peter told that dude to get up, here's what God said to me, Alexander. I want you to preach this, and I want you to preach it all. You need some partners like Peter in your life. Peters are the ones who can say stuff to you can't nobody else say to you and get away with it. They can speak to you in a real manner and call you lazy and say the only reason you ain't got up because you don't want to get up, and you don't get mad. You just go ahead and get up. You need some folk who can confront the real stuff about you, who loves you enough, watch this, that they're willing to lose you in order to help you. Folk who are willing to let you fall out with them because they're not willing to let you lose, even if winning costs the relationship. That's who you need in your life, which also means, and I don't mean to take this on and elongate it, which also means I got to stop having underlings only in my life. I've got to stop having folk in my life who are my cheerleaders, and I've got to start putting some coaches And I've got to start putting some mentors, and I've got to start putting some spiritual mothers and fathers in my life who want to see me better. Because your underlings, your cheerleaders, those of you who have people around you that are equal to you, they will only show you and say to you what they think is good about you, because they think that's what you want to hear about you. But those other people, they will only say what they need to see from you. And many times that's not what you want to hear from them. But they don't care, because they're not in your life to make you feel good about where you are. They're in your life to help you get where you're supposed to be. And so you got to know how to use peace as an equalizer. You got to know how to walk in peace, and you got to know how to command peace. And sometimes you got to supplicate, and you got to pray for peace, and you got to stay on your face until peace comes, because there is a peace called peace with God at salvation. And then there is the peace of God, which is the act of the Holy Spirit. But then there is peace with all men, which comes as a result of my peace with God and me submitting myself to the peace of God. Now, as we move into the financial struggles that many of us face during the holidays, because we got to get everybody a gift, and isn't it amazing? They don't give us a gift, but we got to get them a gift, because we got to make sure they understand that we got to go into hock, or as the old folks say, or we got to go into debt in modern vernacular. We've got to get everybody a gift. And now I'm hosting dinners, I'm buying gifts, I'm giving people loans, I'm trying to keep everybody together, I'm neglecting my bills, and now I find myself at the precipice of the new year, starting over because I've lost so much or incurred so much debt at the close of the old year. And now I'm doing what I always do, making New Year's resolutions, because I'm trying to create some old year solutions. Bishop Ford, I need you to help us. Give us some advice on how, I know you personally. I've been to your house. I've ridden in your cars. I've been to your church. You something like Jed Clampett, bruh. You know, swimming pools and movie stars, you know. No, but listen, so I know you. I know you're a man of great stewardship and financial wisdom. How can you help the people that's dealing with financial stress during this particular time? And they may say to you, Ford, I already know what Proverbs 22:7 say. It warns me about debt, and it tells me not to be extravagant, and it tells me to be a good steward. I knew that before I got into debt. How can you help them not to succumb to these pressures during this time of the year?
I know they don't want to hear it, but that's a good place to start. One of the things that we have a problem with is the scarcity mindset and the poverty mindset. The scarcity, is amazing how we have a scarcity mindset when it comes to giving to God, but we have no scarcity mindset when it comes to buying a new game or a new whatever. We can find what we want to find when we want to find it. The problem is God gives us, and I know I'm not doing a tithing message, but God gives us 100%. He only asks for 10. So if I give him that 10, I got 90. If I got $90, what I do with the $90 is going to make me a better man or worse, depending, because the dollars ain't what's bad. It's what I do with the dollars that's going to make the problem. So if I got $90, now I got to change my mindset. And I think that's one of the problems that the ministry has to get in the fact when they're talking to people is it's not the scarcity of money, it's how I deal with the money I have. Because if I grew up not having money and not knowing what to do with it, I'm going to repeat the cycle of what I grew up seeing. So I need somebody to interject. Once again, back to the mentors and back to the people. I need to get around people that are going to help me to understand what money is. It's a medium of exchange. And I need to get around people to help me to understand that, yeah, I may be making this, but I can still do this if I do it the right way. I may have to do some delayed gratification. That's a bad word in the church world. Delayed gratification. I'm gonna cuss to you one more time. Delayed gratification. That there's some things that you just have to delay. You know, we used to, back in the old day, you had that layaway. You know, you put it on the layaway, you pay your $10 every week, and then you go pick it up just before Christmas. That was delayed gratification. You couldn't afford to pay the whole price, but they held it for you until you could pay it off. So sometimes we got to understand that we don't have to get it right now. And that's that I got to have it right now. That popcorn, put it in the microwave, bop, 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 and it's ready. No, you took 5 years to get in debt. It's going to take you some time to get out of debt. And if you got a bad credit rating where you have stuff that has been put on there, it takes almost 5 to 7 years to get that off. So you got to be willing to get in the fray. I'm sorry, honey. I know you wanted them new Jordans and that new LeBrons that were $500, but I'm going to go over here and get you some of these. We're going down to Payless, and we're going to get you some of these. They might laugh at you, honey, but just tell them they paid for it, and we can still eat. But until we can get there, we spend too much time wasting our money. People look at me and they go, look at you. You do this, you do that. That was a story when all I had to eat was a salami sandwich, some Lay's chips, and a cookie. But I believe God that one day I was going to be better because I started looking at better to get better. Oh, help me, Holy Ghost. You got to look at better to get better. And if I want to get better, I got to set my sights. See, I set my sights on my spiritual father. He got it going on. When I saw that red 740, I said, Lord, there's one in the room for the brother right here. Because I know my dad, I'm going to be just like he's my goal setter. Now, I don't pull up in parking lots. I still got it in me because I keep mine, but I'm a little less formidable, but I'm done. That's my story. I'm gonna leave on the gun part. I'm gonna start right there.
Listen, Ford, I started to let you hear the sound. You've been muted. That's Listen, thank you so much, son, and thank you for that financial wisdom. Family, listen, he was dropping gems, and you need to hear it. And I don't know who this is for, but you've got to stop allowing people in their mismanagement to make you feel bad about your good stewardship. And that's just a fancy way of saying, stop putting yourself in a bad predicament trying to help people who constantly put themselves intentionally in bad financial predicaments. And I'm going to tell you something God said to me, and this may not be palatable for some. There are some people I helped, and God said, now listen, I didn't tell you to do that. You just sold my money into mismanagement. And you have got to, thank you, Holy Ghost. I think you said something else for it that the Lord wants me to talk about. Anytime you have bill money, but you choose to make it some other type of money, you're stealing. Woo! Lord have mercy. I wonder if I got any thieves on here. And here is what you have to understand. I'm trying to be comical, but I'm being serious. That if you can't be trusted not to spend what is not yours, then God can't trust you to give you what is yours. And sometimes you are holding up what's yours because you're holding on to what is not yours. So Alexander, how can people in this season shift their focus from materialistic gifts to meaningful connections? But I want you to add a little twist, because I don't want people to get it wrong. God has no problem with us gift giving, because Father is giving at his essence. He gave his only begotten. He is giving. But I believe many times we want Father to give to us, but we don't want to learn the ministry of giving. I tell people all the time, and you won't like this, I promise you. I know you won't, because some of y'all been doing it. You can stop praying for money. It ain't coming. Here is what sounds carnal, but if you open your mind up, you'll get it. You don't P-R-A-Y for money. You P-A-Y for money. You don't pray, you pay. And no matter how you pray for money, you have then utilized the wrong tool that is a part of the system of reciprocity that's designed to cause reaping. You got to sow if you're going to reap. You can pray all day. Now, you can pray for God to help you to manage it. You can actually pray that God will give you the sagacity and the sustainability and intentionality once you get it, but you won't get it until you give it. I need you just talk about that a little bit, if you would, Alexander.
Oh, Lord Jesus. I had to get that bullet out of my back. Well, no, you shot me straight forward. Let me talk. I can talk about this. Bishop Ford, you always set the platform talking about changing your mind. I told y'all I can talk about me, and nobody can beat me doing it. First of all, I asked myself a question. I used to give gifts because I wanted to feel validated to the people, I thought. But the reality is that made me feel good, which means I made this amazing discovery by way of one of those friends that say stuff to you that they don't put no sugar on it. You know who I'm talking about, Bishop. And so I used to do it, but I didn't realize I was infested with this demon called pride.
So Alexander, real quick, so that we may maintain integrity, I want you to finish your spiel, take as long as you want. I want you to go into our closeout, and we're going to pick this up on next week, okay?
Okay. So I would give gifts based on how I wanted people to see me, and the problem wasn't them, it was how I was seeing me. And then I started asking myself, why are you spending? Here's where you shot me. Why would you take your car note money and buy Christmas for, and I can say this publicly because it's comical now, for nephews that now I look at them and say, I'm gonna buy you the same thing you bought me, dude. That's what we get. We're gonna exchange the same. So because we have to make sure that we don't disrespect God's provision. And that's what that is. When you take your car note, your light bill, your rent, your mortgage, and buy $600-700 games and $300 and $400 shoes, and then you wrap back and say, oh, they got this, and now you have to sit them shoes outside. You don't have no electricity to plug the game up. That's not God. That's foolish. Y'all, I've been guilty. I've been guilty, but I have a friend, and then, bless God, I have a pastor who don't mind saying, Kinder, and so I might leave Kinder reinstated right there, because that's that tone I know when it's time to get handled. But the reality is, stewardship has to start with a changed mind. My mind has to want to be different. And I have a secret to tell you. The devil don't have you right there. It's your choice and then the lack of making a decision to change. And those are two different things. And that's a whole nother story. But we must have a different mindset, and then we'll grow up and be like my brother, Bishop Ford. You'll be able, if you choose to buy the gifts that you couldn't buy, but then he's not evicted, he's not walking, he's not coming in saying, okay, I don't know why people tip in the door when they wonder the lights on, like they creeping up on the lights. Let me see. No, that's not the will of God concerning us. So in this season, as I bring this to a close, let's not do things that God didn't provide for us to do. Watch this. And what I mean by that, if it's your light bill, your water bill, your mortgage, your car note, that's not a $600 PS5 system for your sweet little child that's been good all year, and then they don't have no lights between Christmas and New Year's. No, that's not it. I remember I have sisters, and I love them. And one year I found comical mugs, and we laugh about those mugs today. But that's where I was, y'all. It was something that fit every one of them. So let's stop taking ourselves under and then rebuking the devil and then making resolutions. I call them resolutions. And because you don't mean to change, you're going to do the same thing again. So let's change. Let's make life different. And I can't make it different for you until I make it different for me. And Bishop, I do not ask for money, but I declare, he said he gives seed to the sower. And I go to digging. I dig, and in my mind, I got a shovel, and I dig a big old hole so I can put something in there, and I'm enjoying the change. Watch this, that I was once afraid to try. But because my bishop kept on pushing me, he kept pushing me, I'm excited. I'm excited about it. And in this room today, God has no respect to person.
Alexander, may I say this?
Yes.
And I'm so glad you said, thank you for giving me the door to bring clarity. There is a prayer for money, and that is seed to sow. But understand, he knows your heart. And if he has concluded that you're not asking to sow it, it won't come. Because he'll bring seed to sowers.
That's right.
But that's not your harvest, it's your seed. Here are two things I have understood about God that changed my life. I stopped trying to work for money, and I started working on my purpose. And when you work in your purpose, money will find you. You don't have to go follow it. Your purpose is simply this, and I don't know what you're called to do, and please don't email me and ask me because I don't know. But I do know this. It's a solution to somebody's problem. And when you solve someone's problem, their money will transfer from them over to you. When you become a solution to a problem, you've put yourself on the path to prosperity. One of my daughters is on here, Apostle Ash, and I won't get in her business, but she knows what I'm talking about, because during the lean times of her life, she became a solution to someone's problem. And when they came into their prosperity, they remembered her. And she was simply working purpose, not looking for money. You're not designed to work 2 and 3 jobs. That ain't God's will for you, to be so tired you can't even play with your children, to be so worn you can't keep your eyes open. You got to find your purpose, get in your purpose, and watch prosperity find you. My life did not change until I found my purpose. And when I found my purpose, I got in a position, watch this, where I didn't become a hoarder, I became a sower. Because my purpose gave me seed. And I started putting seed in the ground. And I'll let you challenge me on this, and it ain't even your business, so I won't even argue with you. But I have too many people on this line right now, starting with my wife and others who are intimate in my circle, who knows I sow no less than $600 a week the moment I wake up. And I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning every Sunday. No less than that. Now, that means my sewing bill is roughly $3,000 a month. My sewing bill. And if I'm sewing like that, can you imagine what God is doing in return? Lord, help me. He is. Alexander, we're back to you.
Bishop, you almost started something right there with that sewing stuff, sir. It is so necessary. And if you're not sowing, because again, he said it, the seed you sow is the one that bring your harvest. And your harvest is what you tithe off of. That's the seed you owe. And so don't shortchange you in this season, don't make it so commercial that you miss the moment. Let your motive be, just like he said, let your motive be that I'm going to be somebody's answer. I'm saying this in a few days. I'm taking my nephews, I'm buying blankets, and we going out because I saw they like to do it. My sister couldn't find none of her blankets last year because her sons got them and gave them to the homeless. So I'm going to buy some blankets, and we going to the street and just give away some blankets. Why? Because it's something about this giving thing that has become, it does something to me. And so he has no respect to person. This is where I was. Same thing that he's done in my life, he's done in Bishop's life, he's done in Apostle Mason, Bishop Ford. He will do it. I promise you he'll do it. I challenge you. And my pastor know that was a time I was scared I was going to squeeze $1 to the dollar 2 times because I just couldn't see my way. And now I'm enjoying the fact that I can't see my way. I have a privilege to trust a God when I can't trace him, and I'm enjoying it. And every chance I get, I'm putting seed, I'm putting it in the ground. I send seed to my pastors. I send it to them. If they don't say something, I feel like I've been adopted or something. But I place a mandate on the Holy Ghost. My pastor's mouth his ear is to God so that he can speak to me. But then his mouth is to God's ear so he can talk on my behalf. Because it's a privilege. And see, here's another robbery as we get ready to close. Stop looking at money as money and start seeing it as seed. Seed is what brings a harvest. Money don't. Seed is what brings a harvest. Find a way to be a blessing right where you are. You may not be the blessing this year, but if you know your heart and all you have is $1, bless somebody with it. I challenge you. You can't beat God. You cannot beat him, and he's a wonder-nacious God. Oh, I love him. Yes, I do. And so it's the covenant. It's his will. It's his will that you be wealthy. We shout about, don't forget to remember that he's giving you the power to get wealth. But here is the blessing. When we change our mind, wealth, if there is a covenant that belongs to us, and if you're not wealthy, it's because your mind ain't changed. Because he has a word, he has a covenant to keep. And so in this season, let us love through giving. You may not have something tangible. Go by and paint somebody's house. Some older person can't get up and paint. They can go by and mop the floor. Go by and pick up the groceries. Go by and get the trash out the yard. Let this be the gift of serving. We forget about that one. We forget about it. Be a servant unto the Lord. Go by and pull the trash can out. It's getting cold. The old people can't get to the side of the store. They don't have nobody. Go pull the can out. Go do that and say, let me bless you. I'm going to take your trash out during this season. I'm going to put it on the side of the road. I don't want nothing from you. Let's just do it. And so I want to close with that. Bishop, you know what I'm going to say. That's my story, sir. And I'm sticking to it. You go to talk about giving, I'm going on and on. I'm going to my seat.
Well, listen, family, again, it is that time. If you desire to put seed in the ground, it is that time for you to do so. We want to give you that opportunity. Now, listen, I want you to hear this. Your seed is going to determine your harvest. So here's what I want everybody to do. If you are sowing or if you're not sowing, but specifically if you're sowing, I want you to tag your seed with this declaration: I'll never be broke again. I want you to say that. As a matter of fact, the way I like to say it is, I'll never be broke another day in my life. And I want you to say that, but I also want you to be open to all of the ramifications that comes associated with that, which means I got to be a better steward, which means I got to be a better sower, which means I've got to move with intentionality, which means I've got to be open to different forms of currency. I've got to learn crypto. I've got to learn digital. I've got to learn different platforms. I've got to be open to investment opportunities. I've got to be open to marketplace opportunities. I have to be open And I have to be broad-minded enough to let Father tell me to do stuff I wouldn't normally do in order to have what I wouldn't normally have. And I believe that's where God is taking you in this season. Come on, put it in the chat. I'll never be broke another day in my life. You're training your psyche to believe that. As you say it, I believe you're going to walk it out, because as a man thinketh, so is he. I believe that that's your portion in this particular season. I prophesied over your life. You know why? Because your voice needs to be heard. You know why? Because you need to be remembered. And Solomon says, a poor man's wisdom is despised. Nobody wants to hear a poor man. It is God's will for you to have the very best. I'm not going to cuss, but you're going to think I am. Jesus rode in to Jerusalem on an ass that no man rode on. I'm prophesying you will never drive another car with somebody else's miles on it. You're going to not have to buy a new car smelling tree to hang in your car. Your car is going to smell new because it is brand new, because you deserve the best. You don't deserve hand-me-downs. You deserve to have whatsoever your heart desires, but it starts with your stewardship. It starts with your financial management. It starts with you having financial education and financial literacy, where you understand money and you know how to apply the principles concerning money, and you understand that it's God's will for you to prosper. Listen, family, that's all the time we have. Again, if it's your time to sow, you can go ahead and do that if you desire. The mediums are already on the screen. But listen, I want to prophesy over you that you're about to have the next greatest 7 days you've ever had before. I prophesied it over the Impact churches. I'm prophesying it over you. You ain't losing nothing in this season. You are going to multiply and increase. You're going into the new year better than you in the old year. But let me tell you something. Before you get there, you got 7 days of glory ahead of you. I prophesy that by the time we come together on the 12th, you're going to be talking about the 11th and the 10th and the 9th and the 8th and the 7th and the 6th, because of what God established on the 5th. And if you need some Bible or biblical numerics to back it up, 5 is the number of grace. You're in the day of grace, and God is releasing a grace on you for you to do what you normally would not do had not the grace been on you. I love you. I'll see you on next week. Ford Alexander, thank you for being my partners in crime today. Thank all of you for being a part of the E320. And whether I meet you right here on the air or I meet you in the air, here's my promise. I will see you again. I love you. Grace.
You can ask for